Thank you, PJ. It is time after a couple of weeks for another edition of the Pair and a Spare podcast. I'm Justin Gaard from KFAN. We've got Chip Scoggins from the Star Tribune, Ryan Burns from GopherIllustrated.com. So is this episode 101? We haven't done one since PJ, right? PJ Fleck was the last episode that we did, correct?
I think you're
101.
right.
101. Starting a new century. Yeah.
On to the next century. Hopefully we've got another 100 episodes in us. Thanks, everybody who checked out the PJ Fleck episode. It was a lot of fun to do that, 3-4 weeks ago. Appreciate Jack's Cafe for sponsoring this show again and the great event we had for Dinkytown athletes. It was a ton of fun. And we're going back to the Legends series, right? Is it fair to call this the Pair and a Spare Legends series?
Absolutely. This next guy's a legend for sure.
I think that's what we're doing. So we're excited to open up the yearbook a little bit. One of our favorite players to cover, one of our favorite players to run into around town, and frankly, one of the best of all time. He's Adam Weber.
Hey.
Quarterback legend. Looks like he could still throw for 250 if he had that. There's Adam Weber. How are you, man?
I'm great, guys. How you guys doing?
We're good.
Beautiful.
Thank you for doing this. I like to just kind of lay out, especially for a guy like Chip who covered all you guys much more closely. We'll get to it. Burnsy was like 7 years old when you played at. So we're going to get to that in a minute, but we're just going to open up the yearbook, tell some stories, talk a little Gopher football past and present, and Chipper, lead it off, buddy.
Yeah, Adam, thanks for having us or coming on here. I went back through some clips, so I had the good fortune of covering Adam's, I think, first 2 years as a beat writer, and I went back and I looked at a story I did on you from 2000, before your first start. And I think either you told me or your dad told me, and Adam's dad, Bob, was a former Gopher cornerback back in the day. But there was a story about when you were a freshman at Mounds View, and he drove you down to, it must have been the Metrodome, and you guys maybe snuck into the Metrodome, or the story was there's no one around. You guys walked around the field just kind of a reconnaissance mission. This was when you were a freshman, and then this is, I think you reflected on it that week before your first start. Do you remember that and kind of take back through the recruiting process and kind of what that was like?
So, I think if I'm recalling correctly, so I started as a freshman due to Luke Johnson, who was at Mounds View, the starting quarterback. He was going to be a senior. He tore his ACL that summer. So I knew I'd be up on the varsity team in some capacity, either like linebacker or running back. I was wearing number 27. So I was just happy to be there. And all of a sudden, the starting quarterback goes down. I'm competing. They let me go try out quarterback. I end up winning the job. And so now our first game is against Blaine, who is at that time, they're still pretty good, but they were really good at that time, like going to state consistently, things like that. So my dad, prior to the game, drove me up to the Blaine Stadium. And so we were walking around that field just to kind of get my bearings down, figure it out. So I'd be a little bit more comfortable. Luckily, when I was a freshman at Mounds View, I grew up, my older brother was a senior, and he was a football player. And so I grew up around all those guys. And so I felt pretty comfortable, but it was helpful knowing that my dad kind of knew that it was a little bit different stadium than playing in some, Pop Warner field where you have 10 parents there. So that was helpful. But, he was always, my dad was always a great support and kind of understanding the psychology that goes into some of the nerves, especially as a freshman going into that situation.
Then was it because your dad had played there? I mean, I assume you grew up a Gopher fan. Was it as you became junior, senior, you're getting recruited? Was it always going to be the Gophers, or did you look at other schools too? Or
so what I appreciate about my parents was, good or bad, they kind of said, this is on you. You make a decision. You figure it out. Wherever you want to go, we support. If you want to go check out campuses. And so early on, it was after my sophomore year. I was at Mounds View, we did a wing tee. So, half the time I was handing 90% of the time I'm handing the ball off of my back is to the defense. So I wasn't being heavily recruited as a quarterback at that point. I went to a 7-on-7 camp at Minnesota. Eric Decker's there. So this is the summer going into my junior year, summer after my sophomore year, and performed really well, throwing the ball really well. I remember it was one situation where, they're having us throw concepts like a curl flat concept against a defender. I'm like, oh, so you read the defense, and then depending on what the defender does, I just throw. I'm like, that's brilliant. That's amazing. I can do this. And then so after that camp, Glenn Mason offered me. I think he ended up offering Eric Decker that same time as well. And that's where Eric and I first met and kind of started our friendship. So then from there, I started doing more camps. And so my dad would always just travel with me and take me to mostly around. I knew I wanted to stay in the Big Ten. Minnesota was the easy choice, or the most simple choice, I would say, or what would make the most sense. But I wanted to do my due diligence and make sure that I was making the right decision for myself and my future. When it came down to it, it was between Minnesota and Wisconsin, and I was really close to going to Wisconsin. That was a really interesting decision. But I remember my parents and I talking to Coach Mason and saying, one of our concerns is if you're going to stay around, because at that point he was like up for a contract renewal, and going into that decision time, he had just signed like a 4-year extension. So I was like, what, that kind of solidifies it, because at Wisconsin, Coach Alvarez had just stepped down. And so there's kind of some uncertainty of what that next step looked like at Wisconsin. And so knowing Coach Mason was going to be there for my 4 years, I'm like, boom, let's go. I'm ready to make that decision. So I made that decision prior to my senior year. And then lo and behold, that 4-year extension only lasted 1 season or 2 seasons. So anyways, it all worked out though.
Yeah, Mace always talks about he had delusions of grandeur for how you were going to run his offense. He said that on the Fan a million times. So what is that like when, because you go back to 2006, there's no transfer portal, right? I mean, there's no like getting out of your NLI. It was NLI before it was NIL.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a different time, right? So what was that like when, they come back from that bowl game, Glenn Mason's fired, and all of a sudden, here comes Tim Brewster, a guy that I don't know if you'd ever heard of him before. He got the head coaching job. So what was that whole thing like as a young buck?
Yeah, no, it was, definitely interesting times. My first time I met or saw Coach Brewster is when they did the introductory press conference. And so I think they did that at the Alumni Center or something like that.
Yep. Yeah.
And so you saw it, you're like, whoa, this guy's on a different level. Okay. A little bit different than Coach Mason. But, at the time it was, you got to buy in. You got to do it, because I knew I wanted to play at Minnesota. Had really built up some great friendships with my teammates, and so now it was okay. Well, this is the next challenge. We'll figure it out, and you buy in. And no doubt it was interesting. There's not one time that I considered leaving, because at that point, right, you'd have to sit out a season, blah blah blah. But I just figured, let's just go compete here and see what happens. Give it my best. And probably helps that I was just super naive. Like, I didn't know, like, when a new coach comes in, they're probably going to want to bring their own people in, and I'm not his guy, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, I didn't even think about that stuff. I was like, I'll just compete. My dad always said, the cream of the crop rises to the top, no matter, no matter what. So that's just how I've always approached it, is regardless of where I'm at, I'll just make sure that I put myself in a position to compete and hopefully earn that starting spot.
Not only did he bring his own people in, he brought his son in, who was a quarterback in U State. Yeah. But I always said that Adams' name is throughout the record book, holds all the records, which is a testament not only to your talent, obviously we always saw that, but just your willingness to adapt. And I don't know that there's a college quarterback who went through as much as you did in a 5-year career, 3 head coaches and 4 offensive coordinators, different in a 5-year span. In some ways, it was unfair that you were asked to kind of change on the fly so often with different schemes, and you're running the spread one year and something else. What was that like as a quarterback, having to constantly have a new coordinator, a new system, new verbiage, all that thing, and just being able to adapt to it?
So I looked at it, there's 2 ways that you can approach change like that. You can either sit there and say, well, this sucks. I don't like this new system. The old system was better, and stay in that zone. Or you say, hey, I get an opportunity to learn something new. I get to be around a new coach, and try to embrace it. So that's no doubt, hindsight looking at it is like, yes, continuity, we struggled because of that. No question. And that it will always be a tough thing to live with, that we weren't successful during those 4 years that I played. But I looked at it that it also prepared me to have an opportunity in the NFL where I knew a bunch of different systems and I could learn a new system really fast. You get a big playbook, it's that thick. I knew just like, okay, I don't need to really need to look at that, right? And okay, you call this formation solo, and other people calls it double. It's like in my mind, I could figure it out. It's like learning a new language. Once you kind of learn a new language, you can pick it up faster. And so I chose to embrace it. And I had some great coaches along the way. Mike Dunbar was great. Jed Fish is great. I'm still close with Jed Fish. He's still trying to get me on his staff at Washington. So it's like, and Jeff Horton was great. So some really great coaches along the way. And, but yes, that was going through that. Now looking back, every summer you would love to like go out in captain's practice and lead the team and be like, here's the plays we're running. We'd go to captain's practice and be like, guys, I have no freaking idea what we're doing. Like, I don't know. Let's just throw the ball. I don't know what system we're running this year.
Goodness. Just go deep. Just go deep.
Yeah. Just go deep, So that's where it really challenged. And then recruiting wise, especially offensive linemen, you go from Glenn Mason's system, which is that kind of outside zone, Shanahan style, heavy on the running back, to a spread system where you're recruiting different type of linemen. And then all of a sudden you go to Jed Fish, who's going more pro style. So now we go back to big guys. Well, yeah, it's a cool idea, but it takes years to develop these linemen. Right. So all of a sudden, It's like, that's where it's the trickle down effect of it takes a few years to kind of get the right guys in the system. And that's where I think we ran into a lot of problems with that changing and stuff like that.
I just can't imagine in today's landscape having a quarterback go through 4 offensive coordinators and trying to have to, like, I can't imagine a Max Brosmer or a Tanner Morgan actually sticking it out in this day and age. But before I ask you about a specific player story, there is one game of yours that I will forever remember. I think Chip was probably there, Guardsy too, which was a Halloween night against Michigan State. What do you remember most about that specific game? I remember watching that. I was at a hunting camp at the time in Western Minnesota. One of my favorite games of all time to turn on. What do you remember about that Michigan State Halloween game?
So that was a very fun evening. People, because it was late, it was a late game. So everyone was excited, for to put it politely. I know my family was all dressed up in hilarious costumes, which was funny. But yeah, it just was. I mean, we started off with a bang. Like the very first play was a throwback to DeJuan Bennett, and he took it for, I don't know, 60, 70 yards. And so it's just one of those games where everything was on.
In that one.
Yeah. And so it's just one of those games where there's some fluky stuff that happened too. I throw a ball to Jeff Towernet, who was our tight end. He gets whacked because it wasn't the greatest of throws. Kicks off his leg. DeJuan Bennett catches it and then takes it for it was. And the crazy thing is, I think threw for over 400 yards. They probably should have been over 500 something because there's a couple misses on my part, a couple drops. But it was one of those weird games where everything was flowing. And the funny thing is too is after that game, Jed Fish was the coordinator at the time. He's like, all right, yeah, let's roll. And I think we played Illinois the next week. And I missed my first throw, and he's like, dude, what happened? Yes, it'd be great to be in the flow zone all the time, but that may have been one of those special games where, all the stars aligned, and but it was incredibly fun. I wish there was more games like that.
There's a few others we're going to talk about. I was in Green Bay, Wisconsin that night. Were you there, Chipper? Because it was Favre's return to Lambeau the next day.
Yeah, I was in Green Bay, but watching it, yeah.
Yeah, so I was with some buddies that had flown in from all over the country to watch Favre go to Lambeau. By the time we sat down at Stadium View Bar and got those big beer, whatever they're called.
The boots?
Yeah. The Gophers, I'm like, we got to get over here. Let's go watch the Gophers play Michigan State. You guys were up 14-rip. And I'll be honest, after that, the night's a little fuzzy. I'll say that. But just talk about being you got to see the transition from, the Dome to TCF Bank Stadium, which now, kids these days take for granted. Like, it was a big deal I think we're seeing the fruits of football being back on campus, now that it's 15 years or so now, just the tailgating so much better, all of that. But you were there kind of at the front end. Like, what was that whole vibe like in those early years?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember that was part of the recruiting shtick for Coach Mason was like, hey, we're fighting hard to get this stadium on campus. It will probably be ready during your playing time, and you get to be a part of that. So I really commend Coach Mason to kind of get that done and up and running. But yeah, the Metrodome that was cool for a little bit. I mean, as a quarterback, it's nice, right? It's always 70,
Conditions.
no wind.
Yep.
Yeah, conditions are great. But when it comes to the atmosphere, it felt like it's a neutral site essentially every single time, right? So you miss out on Guardsy, as you put it, that kind of college atmosphere. And so after a while, you started noticing that where it was, this isn't our home. This is just a kind of just a spot, just a stadium to play on. It was cool because it was a professional stadium, but it wasn't our home. And so to open up TCF Bank at the time, Huntington Bank now, incredibly special. Playing Air Force that night, to be a part of that is something really cool because in fact, I have, that opening night picture. They probably sell it now, but it's a really nice, cool picture of the stadium. And just to know, like, I was on that team, I was a part of that team, that process, is one of those special moments that, yeah, you can maybe focus on, man, I wish we would have done this, or, maybe not so many coaches changes, but then you say, hey, look at this positive out of that situation. I was able to open, we were a part of that team that opened that stadium. And, most importantly, when you open a stadium, it's really important to win the game.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm very thankful we did. It wasn't very exciting on offense. I was a little pissed at myself because it was like, we didn't do much on offense. I want to say like Nate Triplett had a nice fumble return for a touchdown. Yep. Of course, it's like your dreams of like, first opening up the stadium, big long touchdown pass, fans are going nuts, and it was like, well, what? I guess I didn't have personally. I didn't. It's kind of selfish. Personally, I didn't have the greatest of games, but we won. That's the most important thing, and so huge that we beat the Air Force cadets.
Adam, you talked about Decker and your friendship and kind of the relationship you guys. What was that like playing with him and the connection you two had? I mean, obviously, two of the best to ever do it in this program, and the numbers you guys put up was pretty astounding.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun, and we were really close. And it was what made it really fun is we started that friendship really early on, prior to us even being up at University of Minnesota. I remember I would go up to Cold Spring and we'll go watch them play baseball, and we'd hang out. This is even prior to going up to the University of Minnesota, and started building with no idea if we would ever do anything. Right? It was just I knew he was really good. I mean, he was freaking good athlete at everything. So I knew he had a chance, but you just never know. But then when we started kind of playing, it was fun. And that's what I try to tell people now is, you got to build this rapport with your receivers. It's so important to understand body language. It's like, yeah, there's it's a curl route or a 10-yard out. Yeah, that's what it is on paper, but you got to understand, you got to be able to read the body language of a player and know where they want the football. Or, a lot of times with Eric, which was fun, I would look over, it's a run play. I would see man coverage, no safety over top. It's like, screw it, I'll just throw him a fade. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
I was just so having fun. And thankfully, I had coaches that embraced that.
Yeah.
That they're like, yeah, KYP, know your personnel. So it's like, if you got a rock star over there, feed him the football. And so we had a lot of fun with it. I think we could have done more, but I'm very happy with kind of the connection we had and the success we had together.
One thing you mentioned him in baseball, I'd forgotten, but you were elected a 3-sport captain at Mounds View. How good were you at I assume it was basketball and baseball were the other sports? Yeah. How good were you in those sports?
I was probably a better baseball player growing up. But what I found was I love the physicality of football. It wasn't like baseball was. I really enjoyed baseball. I mean, playing high school ball. I grew up watching Joe Mauer. So, my dad would take me up to Midway to watch the Crean-Durham Hall, watch Joe Mauer catch the whole game, come in and throw 96 miles an hour and close the game off and hit like 2 dingers. You're like, whoa. And then shake everybody's hand and say, hey, good game. The most humble guy in the world. I'm like, dude, that's who I want to be. So that's who I grew up around. And so I was a pretty good baseball player, but I was a right-handed pitcher throwing high 80s, maybe low 90s. So it's nothing probably too special there. I was getting some looks. I remember trying out for I think I tried out for like some major league teams in high school. But again, I don't think I was wowing them away. And then ultimately, football was my passion, still is. I just love the game of football. And so once I got that offer from Glenn Mason from Minnesota, I'm like, okay, this is where I'm going to focus. And so it wasn't like I didn't try as hard at, say, baseball or basketball. They became the second tier sport for me, where I was more dialed in for football. Um, and that's kind of how it worked out. But and I'm glad I did, because again, baseball is great. I love baseball. I still love watching the sport. I love football and hitting and all the stuff.
How did Ziggy Zalls use you for the Mustangs? That's what I want to know. The legend.
I was a promising young player coming up. So I was like they moved me up on varsity JV as a freshman.
Wow, what
Because
a
I was
flex.
big. I mean, I'm practically at the same size as I was as a freshman. So it's not. I think what happened was, like, in one of the practices, we're doing like the 3-man weave, and like I was on the sophomore team. I think they kicked me up to the sophomore team early on, and then I dunked, like in practice, and they're like, okay, we're gonna move them up to JV, varsity, and so I think I got like some scrap minutes there. So there's like potential, but I never worked on my craft. Like, I was never in the gym. I wasn't in the gym rat, because like in the summertime, I'm playing baseball, I'm going to football camps, I'm doing all that. So by the time like basketball season came around, you're just finishing up football season. So you have football legs. I have no skills. I can't dribble basketball. It would take me half a season just to kind of get back into basketball shape and to be able to do it. So I was just always behind where, rest in peace, Ziggy Collins. He just recently passed away, but and even until his passing, when I would see him, he's like, you were like one of the worst basketball, like most talented basketball like players I've ever coached. He's like, as a quarterback, you should be good at like passing and like seeing lanes, and like I just never saw basketball that way. I saw you struggle. So I became I pride myself in. I took a lot of charges. I made a lot of I did a lot of screens and rebounded. I probably averaged, I don't know, 6 points, 4 to 6 points a game, type deal. And then my senior, I'm 6'2", not even. Right? I'm sniff 6'2". I was the center. I was the 5. So we were a little undersized.
Small ball. You'd like to play
small ball. That's all right. Yeah. Scrappy.
Draymond Green can do it. Not everybody can be Nick Horvath, right? Not everybody can be the Mounds View legend Nick Horvath, going to Duke and all that. So how do you like that knowledge, Bernsey?
Yeah.
That's institutional knowledge right there.
Yeah, what are we going to get into? Tartan basketball versus Mounds View back in the day now?
We're opening the yearbook. That's what it is.
Oh, God.
Go ahead, Bernsey.
Well, I want to go back to your last 2 years when, we talk about Brewster bringing in Clint. Well, what about the MarQueis Gray experience there for your final 2 years where, again, he's the highly touted kid coming out of Indianapolis, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, it's another offensive coordinator. Now he's bringing in his guy. What do you remember about just playing alongside him and the kind of caliber of athlete he was as well?
Yeah, well, first off, he's a great human being. So luckily, as talented as he was and how the accolades he had coming in, he's just a very great person. Still is to this day. And when I see Queese, he's awesome, right? So he was a great teammate. But I did know, like, they really wanted him to be the starter. In fact, there was times in practice where I would be downgraded to the second team. And so, but I always approach practice and every single day that I'm going to prepare and practice like I'm the number 2 guy. I'm always fighting. Nothing's given. I have to earn that starting spot every single day. And I think with that, what allowed me to kind of keep my spot was I was able to manage the game a little bit better. Definitely, he is more athletic than I am, bigger, stronger, better runner. But I think I was the better quarterback at the time because I understood the system, I understood the checks, I understood defense. And then we kind of incorporated him into some more of that Wildcat stuff. And then, my senior year, it was like, we got to have this guy in the field in some capacity. He can't just be sitting on the bench. And so let's move him to wide receiver, and then became a rock star wide receiver. And I was like, I can't remember how many touchdown passes he had in 2010. But he had a heck of a season as a wide receiver for us. And it just a testament to his athletic ability. And then obviously going on to the NFL. But most importantly, he was a good person, a great teammate. And so he wasn't, we were we were teammates, and that was awesome that we wanted to see the best in each other.
Speaking of teammates, when you get to the NFL and you're at Denver, did you have 1 year overlap with Tebow?
Yeah, with the 2011 season. Yep.
What was kind of like your NFL experience like? I think Denver a couple years. Was it Washington or Tampa a couple years? What was your NFL? NFL experience like?
Well, what was really, really cool was So I signed as an undrafted free agent to Denver. Well, the year prior, Eric was drafted to Denver.
That's
So
right.
right away, I'm coming into a locker room where I have a friendly face. And so I'm kind of coming in, trying to figure it out. Probably just the camp arm, right? I'm the fourth guy. And so luckily with like Eric, I remember I came in, I had like a sore Achilles from training. And why am I blanking on his name right now? He's now passed away, number 88, Demaryius Thomas.
Demaryius
So
Thomas,
he's
yeah.
stud athlete, but a great human being too. As a rest in peace, a great human being. He had just torn his Achilles like the year prior, and he gave me the special like soccer footwear to wear because I told him like, I got this sore thing. Just right away, I felt a part of the team, which is huge. And then I remember like early on having some success, and people would ask like, well, what are you attributing the success to? I'm like, well, it's very helpful when everyone has to do their job, and if they don't, they're like they'll find somebody else. Kind of in college, like if you got somebody who struggles or isn't doing, say you have somebody up front who's not really the best blocker, maybe not the fastest guy, but you just have to live with it. Where in the NFL, I'm like, hey, I'll have a pocket. I can work inside a pocket. That's no problem. Like this is actually, I found it a little easier in practice where I was like, wow, like, I just read the plays out. And so, and it was never too big for me, which was great. I felt very much at ease, and I was playing really good football at that time. But Tim, he was a locker roommate of mine or teammate. We were next to each other. Just a really genuine person. What you see is what you get. Very competitive, but I will say, like, yes, some of the worst practices I've ever seen in my life were during that time, and because they're trying to make him a thrower. And that wasn't his style. His style was he was a football player, who happened to throw he happened to be the quarterback and make some throws. But if you asked him to drop back, take a 7-step drop, read a deep, that's not happening. That's not where he shines. And so I know he struggled there. I mean, there's some games. I think we played Kansas City at Kansas City, and we were like 2 for 6 throwing. It was like the lowest amount of passes for a team in the NFL since the 30s or 40s, and to win a game. But we won. And trust me, there's times where we look at each other. We went on a we won a bunch of games in a row with Tim once they moved him. They benched Kyle Ward and brought Tebow in. That everyone's like, if you don't believe in God before, you better believe in God now. We just won 8 games in a row with this guy leading.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like
so it's hilarious. It's awesome.
I just remember like clutch throws too. Like he couldn't do anything all day, and then all of a sudden he'd just like dial it up, and you guys would win the game. I loved it.
Yeah,
I was all in on it. It's like the guy's winning games. Like, he was 1 for 14 through the first 3, but he was 3 for 3 there in some random 2-minute drill. It's crazy.
Well, I think it goes to show is like that competitive greatness that you see in some people, some of the great athletes, and he had that for sure. And so when the lights turn on, the cockroaches scatter, they say, and he wasn't one of those guys. Like he showed up when they needed him. I think of even like our playoff game. So we win the division, go to play the Steelers at home, and kind of like a nothing game, and then go into overtime. They play like cover 0 for some reason, or really low quarters, and we do a hard play action. Demaryius takes a nice skinny post, and of course, to your point, Guardsy, throws a perfect bang 8 on Demaryius Thomas. He takes it 80 yards, game over. We win a playoff game. It's nuts. There's not many quarterbacks in the NFL that can say they won a playoff game. So, I mean, you can say all the stuff you want about him. He did some things.
Once where like I even think back to transitioning to your time as a grad assistant here at the University of Minnesota, 15 and 16, which speak about being thrown into the fire that 2015 season. What, in your mind, what is the biggest difference going from being the successful collegiate quarterback to then having to go way back down the food chain to being a grad assistant, especially throughout a 2015 season that, again, very, very tumultuous with the way it ended up playing out?
Yeah. No, I mean, in a way, it is humbling, or you have to check your ego for sure. But you understand that you kind of have to cut your teeth in this profession. You don't want anything given to you, especially in the coaching realm. You want to earn it. And there are some things that you just you have to figure out when you're a graduate assistant. You're doing kind of all the non-fun work, I'll say, right? It's a lot of long hours, very little pay too, as well. I'm not sure how that was even legal. I even did like some like charts on myself. I'm like, I'm making like $1 an hour here. This is not making any sense. But it was good. So I was able to work with the quarterbacks, work with the receivers, which was great. And Mitch Leidner was the quarterback at the time, and so it was kind of great. We would pull off and do our own film sessions together. I remember sharing, stories with him because at the time I think he thought like my 4 years was all rainbows and butterflies. Like there was nothing going on, and I'd be like, Mitch, because I think there's maybe after a game he struggled, and people are writing whatever it was, like they wanted a new quarter, whatever was going on. I was like, Mitch, there's times I got benched in practice and stuff. Like, you wouldn't imagine what some of the stuff that people were saying about me. Like, it just part of the deal. So be able to share that with somebody, and that's what I really enjoyed about coaching, was to be able to share my time and hopefully pass that on to people. And that's what really got me excited about coaching. But Burnsy, to your point, Coach Kill, it's our bye week. He has all the other coaches on the road, so it's him and the GAs running practice.
Yep.
And he wasn't getting the right effort out of the players. And so he had a Jerry Kill kind of blow up, which he was known to do a little bit, which is good, a little fiery. But it ended up forcing him to like have a seizure. And so that was after that. I think it was a couple days later that he medically retired from that, which was really tough. But then Tracy Clays comes in, who I'm sure you guys all got to speak with him a little bit. Kind of just a laid back guy. He's like, football's not hard, guy. And I like that. I like that approach because like some coaches get their ego in there and they're trying to reinvent the wheel. And it's like, guys, it's 3rd and 10. You can run a screen, you can try to pick it up, or you hand the ball off and just try to live for the next. I think he even told coaches like, if you're up here past 10:30, you're an idiot. It's not a hard sport. And I like that. Like that made sense to me.
Yeah.
But we also knew that at the time, Maturi steps down. They're in a search for an AD, and so when they hired Mark Coyle, you're like, I kind of know the writing on the wall here. I don't think Coach Clays is going to be the head guy moving forward. But we still went through it and had a pretty crazy season that year as well. Should have been better than we were, and then of course we had off the field issues, which doesn't help anything. But then crazy enough, we go and win the bowl game. And then, the next day we're fired. So that's all. That's college coaching for you.
Your time there, that could be an entire podcast.
There's some stuff. That's crazy 2 years.
To your playing career, you're probably like, oh yeah, coach stepped down. Big deal. I had 52 coaches in 5 years. Like, what's the we move on to the next guy, and the one guy's right here. Like, no problem. You were probably prepared. But one of my favorite moments, because you got a lot of credit. I remember Jerry talking a lot about how good you were for Mitch, because you're right. I mean, we all know how, Mitch took a lot of heat while he was here, right? I mean, that's why I coined the phrase Leidner Island. Burnsy and I were the only two ones living on Leidner Island. And like, the guy's winning games. The team likes him. Is he perfect all the time? No, but the NFL can't find 32 starting quarterbacks. So what chance does the Big Ten West have to have a bunch of guys just lighting it up every week? Every college team has problems with their quarterbacks at times. But I always remember after that Holiday Bowl, Adam, we were in the team hotel because we stayed after, and Mitch's parents were hanging out down there, and you'd pop down there. Burnsy, you might have been there too, because you used to live at the hotel bar with other assistant coaches whose names remain nameless. But to see them, how appreciative they were of you as someone just watching it from the outside who watched you on the field, because that's where you were. I just thought that was really cool that in that short time, it was obvious the impact that you had on their son. And even though you don't coach anymore, that to me, that is why you coach, right? To make a positive impact like that. And you could just tell how appreciative they were that you came along when you did to kind of shepherd Mitch through. Obviously, you won a lot of games, but like you said, could have been more. There was more meat on that bone. And if you make another throw or you get another stop, we're talking about different things. I just thought that was, you guys clearly had a pretty good bond, and I wanted to pass that on. So I just thought that was a cool moment.
Yeah, no, and I just like Mitch is a wonderful, man, and so he was a great leader of the team, and just to be shoulder to shoulder with them is very enjoyable. And to your point, that's why I was coaching. It wasn't for anything else other than to have those moments, those bonds, to be there, to share, to be somebody that I wish I had when I was coming up, and that was was my main focus. So I'm thankful and appreciative that they saw that support that I had in their son. And so, that's the special stuff. It's, obviously it's the wins and losses that kind of go down in the record book, but those are the relationships are what are lifelong and lasting.
So, Adam, with the coaching, is it just a lifestyle choice for you that you didn't want to stay in that profession?
Yeah, no, I saw, I look at like a guy like Jed Fish, great guy, great coach, tons of success now at University of Washington. But I remember that, coaches would have up in their office or at their house all their different stops, they've been to. And I was like, 12, or what was it? It was like 9 stops in 11 years. Okay, so that's not ideal. And then it was, at Minnesota with Coach Clays, I was like, this makes sense. It was when I got to kind of UCLA, which was great, and nothing against the profession and the people that do it. I just was like, man, I'm up here for 16 hours. We're probably getting 8 hours of work done. I like all you guys, but I would rather be home. If we're done working and there's nothing to do, I would rather be home with, at the time, it was my girlfriend, but now my wife. It's like, and I saw like my future is like, it's just more valuable to me to be a father and a husband than to scheme how to pick up third down. It's like, we're not curing cancer. Why am I up here until 1 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah.
So that's what kind of got me. And then to realize like to stay in it, I was going to have to move around and do that. I want to put down roots, and I wanted to be a family man. So yes, it was a lifestyle choice ultimately.
What were your living conditions like in Westwood? What was your job, first of all, with Jed? What was your official title?
Official title was offensive analyst, which whatever the hell that means, right?
Yeah. Means low pay.
I was the intermediary between the coaching staff and the GA, essentially, but pseudo quarterback coach, because Jed was the quarterback coach, offensive coordinator. That's where I stepped in and assisted there. So I'm really assistant quarterback coach is probably what the more realistic title is, what I was. And then liaison of the GAs. So, I'd make sure that the GAs were doing all the stuff that they needed to do. And then I would be assisting Jed as the assistant quarterback coach.
What kind of mansion did you have there in Bel Air with that salary and that title?
We were, Bel Air, a little bit more south. We're in Culver City. I actually like this spot. I'll tell you what, I didn't mind LA. I mean, yes, cost of living was brutal. But I was like, I wake up in flip-flops and shorts every day. I like that. I can get used to that. And we'd practice early. We'd practice at 7 a.m. So that meant I was getting up at like 5, getting up to the facility, make sure I got all my stuff done. And then it'd be like a full day, probably leaving the facility at like midnight or 1 o'clock. Drive on the 405, which depending on traffic, I was only like 2 miles away. It could take you like, not at that time of night, it wasn't bad, but certain times of day, traffic's brutal. But I mean, I'll come home, I'll eat some cold leftovers in the fridge, lay down for like 3 hours, wake up and do it all over again. It just, after a while, it just kind of it wears on you.
Wow. So you mentioned wife and kids now. What's Adam Weber's life 2025? Your kids growing? You're going to be the dad coach for them if they're in sports, or are you at Gopher games on Saturdays? What's the life like now?
I would say yes, I'm looking forward to, I love those what I love about sports is like there's life lessons to be learned through it. A sport, a game, a practice is a microcosm of what you're going to face in life. So I do love that component to it. I don't look forward to some of the stuff I see in youth sports when it comes to, say, like other parents and things like that. I'm not looking forward to that at all, one bit. But yeah, no, 2 small children. I got a 3.5-year-old son. His name's Bear. He's awesome. And crazy. And then a 1.5-year-old daughter named Billy. So the loves of my life. And then my wife, Jasmine. So we're doing that, and which is awesome. I got my son, got him learning how to skate. I never played hockey, competitively. I'm kind of hoping my son doesn't either, but we're prepared. You're in Minnesota, you better learn how to skate. One of those things. It's like, we'll teach him how to swim. We'll teach him all the stuff. You're going to learn how to swing a golf club, all the things. And so I'm just loving life that way. And professionally, I work for a company called Marsh & McClellan Agency. I'm a health and benefits broker. So I work with companies that are kind of growing, and I try to help them through their kind of insurance process. So it's a job that it's like what I tell people. It's not like when I was growing up, hey, this is what I dreamt of being. But what I do enjoy is the people I get to meet and help and get them put together a team. I truly kind of quarterback for it's kind of funny how that plays out, but I truly quarterback a situation where I'm the quarterbacking our resources at my company to what this company needs. And then I just make sure that the right people are in the right spots. And it provides a lifestyle that allows me to be home for dinner, which I'm very appreciative of.
Forever the quarterback, right? Right.
Yep.
It doesn't leave you.
So
No.
you said your son's already skating a little bit. He's 3.5.
Yeah, we got him in some skate lessons up here in Maple Grove.
Yeah, that's good because I was going to say if he hasn't started now, he's already behind.
He's behind.
I know,
Yeah.
too late. Yeah, I know.
I'm a hockey dad, and especially if you don't have a hockey background like I didn't, you'll find out once he joins a team. His assistant coaches all have like 500 games in the NHL because all the hockey players just move here, have kids, and that's so. Yeah, find him some other sports if you don't want to deal with that. That's what I'm dealing with. But I'm glad you got him on skates so he won't be too far behind at 4 when you get him out of.
I remember that, like I have a neighbor friend who was like giving us a bunch of the kids' gear to get them ready. He's like, these are the breezers. I'm like, what are these? Oh, okay. I guess they're shorts. They're shorts with pads. That makes sense. Okay. I gotcha. Yeah. I'm so oblivious to it. Like I can skate, but no idea about like the culture and lifestyle of hockey, which is, I don't know, probably tough because I live in Minnesota. I'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out. You're a smart guy. You can go through transitions. Can we talk about your last game in our final couple of minutes? The game against Iowa. Speaking of skates and conditions, I remember leaving at halftime because it was so cold. Shout out Sally's for keeping us warm. But that had to be. And you mentioned Jeff Horton. I had just kind of started covering the team more regularly then and went to the press conferences mostly because of the free food, much to Mace's chagrin. Of course. But I loved his approach that whole time because like he obviously knows he's the interim coach and he's saying I always remember the line like, yeah, when whatever happens after the last game, there's a train track that runs by our practice field. I'll grab an apple and I'll hop on that and we'll see where it takes me. Like just the fun. No one wants to see their coach fired during the season, but I have to imagine like that was a good guy to kind of take things over. It seemed like he had a good just kind of reference for all of you. And obviously you guys played great down the stretch and beating Iowa was always a great thing, right? To wrap up the season there. Yeah,
no, Coach Hort, as we say, he's the man. He's just a really great human being, great father figure to look up to. But yeah, like it's not ideal. Coach Brewster, by that point, the writing was on the wall. We weren't performing very well. We lose to Purdue, and I think he gets fired, not too much later after that. So that not ideal, right? Because that's life-changing for people. Coach Brew ended up just fine for himself, but still it's a humbling kind of, it's a low in someone's life. And then the whole rest of the staff kind of knows, all right, well, we're probably done here. You never know, right? You want to stay positive. So there's just all that kind of going on. But yeah, Coach Horton comes in, he changes up practice, like even how we warmed up. He's like, hey, we're going to just, guys, let's find the joy in what we're doing these last little bit. And that was really important because I knew this was like my last go around to where, I grew up my whole life dreaming of wearing the maroon and gold.
Right.
And then to have it where you're like not enjoying it or not being not enjoying it, but it's just not going the way you want. He was able to kind of bring back that joy and have fun with it. And then to your point, yeah, we had some success at the end. We beat Illinois at Illinois, which is awesome. And then to beat Iowa at home, yes, the last game, which, yes, very cold. I can't remember what the temperature was, but they didn't have, the field wasn't heated. This is prior to like where they came in and like NFL had to heat it because that's when Brett Favre, I think that same year.
It was that season.
Touched,
it was
right?
2010. Yeah.
Because it was rock hard. Yeah. And so that the field was rock hard. But it was awesome. Yeah. I do not like the Hawkeyes. So that was awesome. I wish we would have beaten more of the rival games, but I'm very, very thankful that we beat the Hawkeyes and we got the Floyd of Rosedale. And then we took it out down into Dinkytown that night, which was very fun.
That's
How
awesome.
many guys are going to take to carry it around Dinkytown?
Yeah, well, you get some liquid courage and one guy can do it. But no, yeah, it was a team effort.
That's awesome.
What else for Adam, guys?
Yeah. Go ahead, Burnsy.
Well, I'm trying to take you back 15 years now. I want to see if Guardsy can find the photo that I sent to him earlier.
Oh, you mean this photo right here?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any recollection of that night before I tell the story of how I remember it?
I don't. I'm trying to think. I don't even know.
Look at that smile on Burnsy. He's so happy.
That's
Did I
15 years
speak?
ago.
Was that? That was over. Did I speak at something or what was that?
All right, so to give context for this photo on the screen here, you and a former Bloomington Jefferson player that you were trying to mentor at the time came over to the machine shed right off of 94 there to speak at I think it was the Tartan High School football banquet, where the story goes, my father called the U and said, "Hey, can you send over a couple of players to come talk at our year-end banquet?" And they sent Adam Weber and Moses Alapate.
Moses.
And
wow.
Yep, got to sit at the same table as the Adam Weber. Got to hear some pretty good stories. And I'll tell you, my father couldn't give a more glowing recommendation. So if you ever need somebody to write you one, the unofficial mayor of Oakdale himself would love to give Adam Weber but when we
look at Burnsy, little baby Burnsy.
I went back down
look at that baby face.
and I was like,
Yeah.
look at that! 15 years ago, Adam.
You know what, Adam? If you'd
Tartan High School,
have done that this year, they'd have paid you a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah. Well, I got a nice meal out of the deal. You know, I'll take that.
That's right.
Yeah, look at this. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be a linebacker hitting you, Adam. I mean, look at that. You were ready to go.
Yeah, that's thicker. Yeah, that's always funny. People kind of always give you kind of crap about that. Like, oh, geez, I thought you would be bigger. It's like, well, you know, I was like 30 pounds ago, and I wasn't a quarterback. I'm not like, you know, so.
It's not just linemen that lose the weight after they get done playing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at Burnsy and his shirt. That's good stuff, Burnsy. That looks like an express shirt that you got at
I'll be the first one to tell you. I don't know how to dress to this day. It's very late 2000s, early 2010s because I got the undershirt rocking.
Yep.
It was.
Adam's got the flow here. Look at that hair. That's good. Got a little curl.
That's why I started growing out my hair. That was my little hippie phase there.
Yeah. I like it. You're a Big Ten quarterback. You do whatever you want. All right. No one wants to see Burnsy there.
That's right.
Anything else, guys, or should we let Mr. Weber get on with the rest of his day? Quarterback. Business.
I always wrap these up, Adam, with just kind of my thoughts, and I always tell people that you're one of the great players in Gophers history, and certainly quarterbacks in the record book, but a better person and a great representative of the university, and kind of what you stand for. And it's great to see you in your post career doing great with your family and your professional life, and just a wonderful ambassador for Gopher football. You won't find anybody better than Adam. So appreciate you coming on here and sharing some stories with us.
So, well, thank you for those kind words. It was important for me always. Again, growing up watching Joe Mauer, I knew I wanted to have the reputation matters and how you carry yourself matters. And so of all things, whether it's success, you win games or not, I wanted to people say exactly what you just said. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you guys for doing this. This is awesome. I love that you guys are doing this. So thank you for having me on.
It's always great to see you on the field, man. What's it like for you to go back now and just kind of hang out on the field? And the former players, I assume you were part of the alumni weekend earlier. I ran into Coke Heath at the Tampa airport. He was coming back. Like, seems like that thing has really grown here in the last handful of years where all you guys, regardless of who your coach was, have been coming back a lot more.
Yeah, it's so important, and it's got to get better, frankly. Like, I'm glad that we're doing this because that's huge. You realize that we all share that common thread. We all wore the M. Whether you're a person name that people know or not, whether you just happen to put on the jersey and never really saw the field, doesn't matter. You wore the M. And so that's a brotherhood. And so I'm glad that we're doing that. We need to get better at that because, you know, that's what it's all about, is the people that you're surrounding yourself with, whether it's personally or professionally. We can raise everybody up. That's important. So I'm so glad that Coach Fleck and his staff started doing that. It's important, and they've opened the doors. But it is, I will say, I do not envy people when I see the hits. When I'm down on the sideline, Guardsy, when I see you down there, and you hear some of these hits. I remember when I was coaching 15 and 16, I'd be on the sideline, and guys are just getting whacked. And it's like, oh, man. I guess that's what it was. It's crazy how quickly that changes and how I couldn't do it anymore. But when you're 18, 19, you're invincible. So
right, you could do it now, but this guy could, right? that guy can take the hits, deliver the hits. Not now, but that guy could definitely do it. Thanks, man. It's great to see you as always. People love hearing some stories, and obviously you have so many from your career, and we appreciate you, man. And we'll see you on campus this fall, the first game right around the corner. But thanks for taking the time, dude.
I appreciate it, guys. Great to see you. Go Gophers.
That's Adam Weber, and this has been the Pair and a Spare podcast. Thanks, as always, to our great partners at Jack's Cafe. Make your reservations at jaxcafe.com.